Hello, everyone. This is Mike from Dimensional Walking. And today we're going to do part three of a very popular series I did on this South Korean UFO shoot down, I guess we're going to call it. Anyways, so we're going to talk about in this one, we're going to do the global patterns of other nations with hidden UFO shoot downs. Okay. And it's just really, it's going to be some detail, but not a lot of detail. If you guys are really interested, I will give you more detail on some of these things. I'm very much aware of what happened in New Mexico since I lived there for many years and did a lot of research in New Mexico on all kinds of different things. And I had the UFO forum there, uh, UFO Paranormal Forum in Albuquerque. So I had the contact with Jesus, a whole bunch of people in the know. Okay, so there was a lot of conversation about ships, UFOs that have been crashed or brought down in the New Mexico area. And I'll talk a little bit about that. I won't talk a lot about it because there's other places around the world that have had these type of shoot downs. So, anyways, let's get started. So, as I talked about in part one, for years there was this rumor that was circulating through the defense circles in Seoul, Korea, Washington D.C., and Tokyo that were very persistent and so oddly persistent that they all kind of refused to die. Okay, course, there was these claims that in South Korea once had brought down this massive unidentified flying object using experimental energy weapons. The craft was so enormous that the military, of course, had to hollow out kind of a mountain to contain it, and then they eventually covered it up. So that's in part one, and you can go there. It was a very popular video, thousands and thousands on Reddit and several thousand on YouTube. But anyways, then in part two, I talked about this kind of unsettling part, which is probably maybe more unsettling than the UFO itself in many ways because uh, of the weapon that supposedly brought down this craft. So, a weapon that, according to whispers in the defense circles, shouldn't have even existed in the 1990s. Okay, the weapon that may have brought had first. It was sort of the weapon that was first real world. It was a real world demonstration of uh, of government, public government, even possessing such a thing. And there was a whole series of denials that it even existed. So this sort of was the story of this project I call, and that's been called this Project Morningstar. Okay, and that it was rumored that this direct energy program that some believe had changed the balance of power in East Asia. Okay, had brought down this uh, UFO. Okay, in South Korea. So now we're into part three. So if South Korea truly brought down a massive craft, there wouldn't be any other nation with such a story. Okay. So, but when you zoom out, a disturbing pattern emerges. A global kind of tapestry of incidents where governments allegedly downed unidentified craft using exotic or unexplained means. Okay, so some of these countries are as follows: Brazil, China, Russia, and the United States. Okay, so let's start with Brazil. So there was this thing called the uh, Virginia Virginia Shadow Program. Okay, so Brazil has long been a hotspot of high strangeness. Okay, I've written about Brazil, and there's a lot of stuff going on there, including UFOs. But this Virginia incident stands apart. Okay, while the public focuses, on these alleged captured beings, insiders whisper about something else. Okay, so locals report a blinding It not only was flashing, but it was blinding in the sky, followed by this low frequency hum that rattled windows. The military units were assembled immediately. It almost seems like they were possibly there waiting. Okay. So some believe Brazil used something I will call an electromagnetic system, possibly supplied by the United States to disable the craft that had been observed for days. So the craft was observed, and it would have probably given some time if they had this piece of equipment reasonably close by to get it in place and bring this craft down. Okay, so there are some parallels to the South Korea story. Okay, that were pretty uncanny. So there was this sudden flash. There was no explosion, and the craft seems to descend intact. Okay, and then there was this immediate military containment. Okay, meaning that the military was basically on site when this event happened, and the craft came down, and then they were there to contain the situation. Okay, Brazil denies everything. Okay, but there's something to the story, no doubt about it. Okay, let's move on to China. Okay, in China in the early 2000s, the Chinese military forums briefly uh, erupted, basically, with rumors of this foreign craft being brought down in an area called Xinjiang using some kind of a high-powered microwave array. And the posts that were where the witnesses were, they started being posted, and they were completely scrubbed within hours. And but there was plenty of witnesses. Being in China, near a big city, there's going to be a ton of witnesses. Okay, so witnesses described the following: a silent object hovering over a military test range. Okay, there was this brilliant pulse of light from the ground. The object dropped straight down. Okay, uh, so just a little comment. That was pretty much it. Now, like I say, everything got scrubbed very quickly. So there's witnesses that had conversation afterwards. That information again seeped back into the public. Okay, but one of the comments I will make here: China had been involved heavily in these direct energy systems. And some analysts believe they tested one of the targets on a target that wasn't theirs. It wasn't a target they put up in the sky. Okay, so that was that. So then we got Russia. So Russia's Far East has its own legend, the far eastern part of the country. A massive triangular craft that allegedly crashed after being hit by a pulse-based weapon during a military exercise. Okay, so maybe the Russians had something going on. Maybe they're having a military exercise somewhere close. A UFO shows up, and they decide to shoot it down. Sounds like maybe the story should go. There was some UFOs in an area. They brought their equipment there and decided to use them as target practice. Okay, and that's probably what they did, I would guess. So So the Russian scientists have openly discussed plasma-based air defense systems since the 1980s. So this was not a secret. The Russians always, and as secretive as one would think, and many times they like to bring this new technology out just to have bragging rights. Okay. Anyways, to some extent, I think that's what they did in this case. If any other nation had the capacity to disrupt exotic propulsion, it would be the Russians. Okay, there's no doubt about it. So this place was called Khabarovsky. Okay, I think I'm pronouncing that right, actually. And so this story included things like a radar anomaly, a sudden loss of propulsion. This is again on the UFO that came down. The crash was in a remote area, wooded area, and it was sealed off. The recovery zone was instantly or very quickly sealed off. So again, there definitely was military people close by of the event. It wasn't that they had to come for hours to get to this place. It was there. Could it have been some type of a military test range or something? Absolutely. Okay, so this sounds pretty familiar. We have a pattern here. We definitely have a pattern. Okay, so let's go to the United States, who probably is the king of shoot downs. Okay, so the U.S. has the longest and most controversial pattern of alleged UFO shoot downs. First was Roswell, possibly 1947. Okay, so there was this whole rumor of radar interference. Okay, so let me just tell you this. I had a group, I think I mentioned it already. I've mentioned it before, the UFO Forum group in Albuquerque, wonderful group, really smart people that came. We had people from all over the United States who would come and speak at our forum. Okay, and a lot of people were for locals that were in New Mexico, and a lot of them were ex-military, etc. And many of them did talk about U.S. having this ability to shoot down craft. Okay, so and not only was Roswell, there was another one in Aztec. There was another one in the Grants area. There was another one that was close to Roswell. I can't remember the name of the little place. I think it was close to the Mexican border, if I remember correctly. Anyways, there were several of them, probably up to and maybe more, but at least four of them that I had people that were old military types or people that witnessed these type of crashes and a lot of military activity around them. The rumor has it that they would carry this kind of a device, whatever it is, some kind of a radar interference or disruptor at the back of a truck, kind of a good sized military truck, and they would move it around to different places where UFO activity was sighted, and they'd kind of wait for some activity, and then they would try to disrupt the UFO. Okay, so that was New Mexico. Okay. Uh, so then there was another place, and this one was in Kirksburg or Kecksburg. I think it's Kecksburg actually, and I believe that's Pennsylvania. And this was 1965. And this whole thing, there's a whole story about this. I'm not going to go into it right now. I just wanted to mention a location. And this object also was forced down by something. I don't think there's a lot of detail on it. I'm going to probably look into it. I had looked into it years ago. I've never done a video on it. I'm going to look and see if it's worthy of a video, if there's enough information to do something like that. There was Shag Harbor in 1967. Craft was disabled and the craft was recovered. Okay, I have done a video on Shag Harbor. You can just go and look at the channel, and you can put Shag Harbor in there. I think you'll get a video that explains what's that's all about. So then we get to the last one. It's kind of this 2004 Nimitz Tic Tac thing. Everybody seems to know about that. I'm not going to go into it, but that was an object interacting with field disruptions. Um, and the pilots just reported that. And I think really in this case, it was more of a disruption that the UFOs were disrupting going back. There really wasn't much of a recovery in this one that I'm aware of. But who knows? Maybe there was. But anyways, I just wanted to mention because there was some type of this field disruption that was going on pilots to between the Navy pilots and the UFO. So, anyways, it's probably has something to do with electromagnetic stuff again. So, insiders claim that the U.S. developed this electromagnetic disruptor, we'll call it, okay, whatever it is, as early as the 1950s, based on recovered materials, okay? So, if this is true, then the USA may have been the first nation to learn how to interfere with human propulsion systems, and other nations may have just followed. Or obviously, we gave, like in the case of Brazil, we probably gave them some of this equipment to use because they had a lot of opportunity, a lot of UFO sightings. So, in summary, let's just say this: in these four countries, these four nations that I mentioned, there are some of these things that are reoccurring or repeated. And let's go through them. And one is a silent craft. Start with a silent craft, okay, in the sky. UFO, alien group, whatever. Then there's a sudden flash or pulse. There's no explosion at all. There's this kind of controlled descent, and there's this rapid military containment, meaning in most cases the military is close by, okay? And of course, it's all fell back into this long-term secrecy, which still stands today, okay? So it's almost as if multiple governments have discovered the same thing at the same time. That happens. I mean, I think it's possible, but you think that some of this information has probably been shared between them. Not necessarily Russia and the Western countries, but definitely the Brazil and the United States type sharing, okay? And a couple other countries too that I didn't mention. Um, so these crafts were disabled, not destroyed, okay, by some kind of a field, something that disturbed them, that allowed them to move. You know, the propulsion system basically was turned off somehow, some way. So if this is true, then the South Korean incident is not an outlier. I don't think it is an outlier. In fact, I know it's not. So it's part of kind of this global arms race that nobody really wants to acknowledge. Okay. It's an arms race that we cannot win. Okay. For the alien groups, I will tell you, have the upper hands. Okay. Now remember this, in no cases that I'm aware of did the aliens come back and say, hey, or say, hey, you can't shoot anything down. We're gonna have a war with you. That hasn't happened, at least not yet. So I think everybody should be a little cautious. We have enough stuff going on in the world right now. We don't need any kind of intervention or any kind of disturbance from alien groups that we have to start looking in that direction to defend ourselves against. So, anyways, it's some interesting stuff. I believe a lot of it is true. Exact details, the in the weeds details, I don't know. I don't think too many people do, but it's definitely something to keep an eye on. So, anyways, with that said, happy trails until we meet again. Bye bye.